gonna be a tongue twister. Blush, brush, brush, blush. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. The curls have come to play, you guys. Okay, on a serious note, I wanted to do this video to share the makeup tools that I use every time I do a makeup tutorial. Every time I just talk about makeup on my channel, I get at least one comment. At least one comment asking what brush is that? What is your favorite, you know, blending brush, eyeshadow brush, powder brush, sponge? Like, what sponge is that? That's the most asked question on my channel. What sponge is that? So today I'm going to share all of my favorite brushes that I use on a daily whenever I'm putting on makeup. And yeah, so all of these are going to be dirty. I haven't even washed them yet, but I think I'm going to wash them and do like cute little overlays so you guys can see how they look like if you are going to purchase them. So I think I'll do that because I actually have time to do that. So I'm excited to finally sit here and go over these with you guys. So go ahead and get comfortable, get a snack, and let's get into it. Let's go in the order of how I do my makeup. So first thing I do is primer. I don't use any tools for primer. I just use my hands. Primer, SPF, hands. And then the next step is the brows. So I use a brow spoolie on whatever brow pencil that I'm using, but I do like to clean up my brows with concealer. And the product that the tool that I use is this little tool from e.l.f. Cosmetics. It's called the double-sided precision brow brush. Y'all will have all the information on the screen because I'm gonna have like little overlays and stuff like that pop up, but it doesn't have the name on this little brush. But I use this every time I do my brows, every time I clean it up with concealer. I like it because of the brush size, and also the angle of the brush, because it's going to make it easier to apply that concealer right up under my brow. It also has a spoolie on the other side if you want to use this to kind of brush up your brow hair as well, but I mostly use it for the brush itself because I like to apply my concealer with the little brush right there. Next, what's next? I apply my foundation. So I don't really use brushes with foundations anymore. I know I used to use a brush all the time, whether that's a liquid foundation, stick foundation. I was always using a brush, but I didn't use a sponge until I started seeing other people use a sponge when they apply their foundation, and I just kind of wanted to switch it up. And ever since then, I have not gone back to a makeup brush. So the main question that I get on my channel when it comes down to makeup tools is, what sponge am I using? So I use a sponge with my foundation, and I also use a sponge with my concealer. So the sponge I use, are y'all ready? Go ahead, turn the volume up, because y'all always ask about the sponge. DSMD Shop. Girl, the best beauty sponge. It's better than the beauty blender, the original beauty blender. It's better than my Sonia Kashuk sponge. Y'all know I was the biggest fan of the Sonia Kashuk sponge, the black and white marble one that I always used to use, and that one is from Target. What other sponge can I compare this to that's actually better than that sponge? I don't really have any other sponges that I used to use. I've used several sponges like from Amazon. This is still better than it. I've also used the e.l.f. What is that sponge from e.l.f.? Y'all know which one I'm talking about. The one that's like everybody's favorite from e.l.f. Cosmetics, the pink one. This is better than that too. So DSMD Shop, this is a black owned business, you guys, so I highly recommend picking up one of these sponges. I'll leave the site down below if you guys are interested in their sponges, but this is what I use in every single one of my makeup tutorials. I use the flat side to blend out my foundation, and then I kind of flip it over. I also use the flat side to blend out my concealer too, but I flip it over to the more rounded side right here, and this is where I apply my setting powder. So I do setting powder too with my sponge. That's another product that I used to use a brush with all the time. Now it's all about the sponge. So foundation, concealer, and loose setting powder, I use a sponge with that. So love these sponges. I know I said I don't use a brush with my foundation anymore, but I should have kind of explained that more. So if it's a liquid foundation, I'm gonna always use a sponge, unless, you know, I come across a brush that I just absolutely love with liquid foundations. But if it's a powder foundation, I will use a sponge or a brush. So if I'm just going to use powder and nothing else under it, like if I just want to do my powder foundation routine, which I have several of those on my channel, if you guys want to watch those. But if I just want to use powder alone, I will use the sponge with that. But if I'm wearing liquid foundation and I need to set the liquid foundation, I will use a powder brush. So I have quite a few powder brushes that are my staples. One of them is the Colored Raine large powder brush. This has become my current favorite staple. I picked this up actually when they came out, because they came out with a ton of different brushes, and I just want to try at least one brush. And I know when it comes down to brushes, I like to pick one that I know I'm going to use more, which is a powder brush. So this right here is bomb. It's huge, it's soft, it doesn't shed. Mind you, I have washed all of these brushes several times and they don't shed, so that's another reason why these are my staple brushes. But yeah, it's really big, it's very fluffy, it doesn't shed, and it just applies my powder beautifully all over the face. So yeah, that is the one from Colored Raine. I have 3 powder brushes that you can get from the drugstore that are the best powder brushes that I've ever came across in the drugstore. One of them is this one from e.l.f. Cosmetics. It's the e.l.f. powder brush. It's huge, almost just as big as my Colored Raine brush, almost, but it actually has, the Colored Raine is actually round, and then this one kind of has a weird shape to it, but it works just as good as my Colored Raine, and it's just way cheaper. This doesn't shed either. I mean, I just said that all of the brushes don't shed, but girl, I just be repeating myself. But yes, it is one of the best powder brushes. I've used this with bronzer before, like powder bronzer, but I personally like using this more with a powder foundation or like a finishing powder all over the face because the brush is so big. I found that when I was using it with bronzer, the bronzer would be everywhere. Like it would be all down here, all up here, like, because it was so huge. But I just loved how fluffy, the brush was. I just wanted to, you know, use it with everything. But really, really nice brush. And the other 2 brushes are actually the same exact brush. But I just wanted to show them to you guys. This is the Sonia Kashuk powder brush. This is the first one that I got from, well, it's not the first brush that I got from Sonia Kashuk, but it's the first powder brush. The best. Now, it's not as big as my Colored Raine or the e.l.f. Cosmetics, but if you're wanting a powder brush that's not too big, that you can use with your powder foundations, that you can use with your blush, your bronzer, these right here, because they're perfect. Like the size is perfect. You can put it all over. You can just apply it right here on the top of your cheeks, just wherever you want, because they're not super duper big. But I like them because they also work really well with my powder foundations. I did see that they now have the mint green. They don't have the pink unless I overlooked, excuse me, but they don't have the rose gold online or in my Targets that or in any of the Targets that I've been in. Maybe they still have it, I just don't have it, you know, in my Targets, or I just been overlooking it. But if you see this in Target, if you see this one online, just know that this is the same exact brush as this one right here. But really good, really affordable, and they're just good. Now, after I do my foundation, my concealer, my setting powder, I go in with my bronzer. So I have 2 different brushes. I have a brush for cream bronzer, which has been my go-to type of bronzer. That's all I wear now. And then I have a brush for powder bronzer. So let's talk about the powder bronzer. This brush from Sephora is called the Pro Flawless Light Powder Brush number 50. This is hands down the best brush that I have come across to use with bronzer. It's the shape of it, it's how it applies the bronzer. It's just something about this brush that makes any bronzer that I've ever used that's a powder go on so freaking beautiful and flawless and smooth. So, and I guess that's why they call it the Pro Flawless Light Powder Brush, because honestly, every time I would apply a bronzer with this, it just goes on beautifully and smooth and just, it's just all the good things. But yeah, Sephora, number 50 Pro Flawless Light Powder Brush. The best, the best, the best. You can use whatever brush you want. That's one thing I should have said before I even gotten into this, but these are just my personal favorites, just my personal favorites. But when it comes down to makeup, you honestly can use whatever, like whatever brush that works for you, use it. But yeah, anyway. Now, cream bronzer. This brush from e.l.f. Cosmetics has been a staple. It is the best. Honestly, I forgot I had this thing in my collection. I don't even remember what drew me to look for this. I don't know, but this was in my drawer in my beauty closet, and I don't know why. Maybe because I wanted to try a different brush out with my cream bronzers. I think that's what it was. And I came across this one. Now, I've noticed that they don't have this particular one anymore. Now they have the all black one, which is the exact same brush. It's just, you know, a different color. But the best brush. I think this is called the Travel Mini Blending Brush, I want to say. But if you want to use this with a cream bronzer, you can do it with that. You can do it with a cream blush. You can do it, honestly, you can, like I said a minute ago, you can use whatever brush that works for you with any product that works for you. But this is just what I use. These are my personal favorites, and I like that you can easily put this in your purse if you want to, because it's so small. And you can use this with so many other different products on your face if you want to. But yes, these are the best. Okay, blush. I haven't really been wearing blush a lot lately, and I feel like you guys have kind of caught on. Every time I do my makeup, I'm always like skipping the blush. Girl, let me just go ahead and just call it a day because I cannot talk. Every time I do my tutorials, I was always skipping the blush step. But if I do wear a blush, I'm either wearing a cream blush, which is also a new obsession of mine. Y'all know I never, ever, 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 ever used to wear cream products. Like, I would never touch a cream bronzer. I would never touch a cream blush back in the day, but now that is all I want, all that I use if I'm using it. But cream blush, since we're talking about creams, if I'm going to use a cream blush, I also use my sponge. So I just take the ball side of the sponge, and I just kind of smirk, do a little smirk, and then just kind of tap it on the apples of my cheeks. And I like using the sponge more than I do a brush or my fingers, because the sponge just applies the blush so much better. I don't know, like when I applied it with my fingers, it doesn't look like it's blended out enough, or even when I apply it with the brush, it looks like it's kind of streaky. So with the sponge, it just looks beautiful and well blended and flawless. Like, it just looks so good when I use a sponge with my liquid blush. So let's talk about powder blush. I actually have two different brushes. Now this is going to be a tongue twister. Blush, brush, brush, blush. But anyway, first brush that I want to talk about that I like to use with my powder blushes is this one from Patrick Ta. This has easily become my favorite brush for powder blush, and I should have mentioned it with my other bronzer brush, but this is also really good for bronzer. It's the way it's shaped, it's the way that it applies the product. It doesn't look streaky, it looks even, and the brush is so freaking soft. It's very luxurious. It is a little pricey, but it's totally worth it. But yeah, I have used this with my powder blushes, and I've also used it with a few powder bronzers, and I just love it. I love this brush. Another one, if you're looking for a cheaper alternative, this one from Real Techniques. I don't know if this particular one is still, if they still sell it, because I got this years and years and years ago, back when, you know, Real Techniques was all over YouTube. Like, everybody was raving about Real Techniques brushes. Everybody was using them. It was just all over the tube. But this is the Real Techniques 400 brush. It's the blush brush. So this is another brush that I've also used with powder bronzer, but I rather use this one with my blush, because even though it is kind of similar to the Patrick Ta, this one, when I use it with my bronzer, I feel like the bronzer kind of went a little everywhere, because once I put it on my face, once I put it on my face, it's like the bristles kind of spread out more than they do with the Patrick Ta. So I rather use this just only for blush, and I just kind of tap it on my cheeks like this. I'm putting it over here just in case I had some blush over here so it can be even. But yeah, that's how I apply my blush. I just kind of smile and then just tap it on the apples of my cheeks. But this is good. It's affordable. And if you're wanting something a little bit more luxury, something that's gonna last for a good minute, this one from Patrick Ta is bomb. The last brushes I have to share are eyeshadow brushes. Now, y'all know I am not one to use more than 3 different eyeshadow brushes when it comes down to doing a look. I like to use one brush, to be honest. To be completely honest, I like to use just one brush and I am good. Either a brush or my fingers. So the brush that I'm always using, always using, that I would recommend to every one of you that are watching this video if you don't have it already, Morphe M504. Hands down the best blending brush that I've ever tried. Now, I have tried a ton of blending brushes. There are a ton of other blending brushes that are really good. But this is one that I feel like I have used the most, that I have purchased the most. Y'all, I'm almost embarrassed to tell you guys how many of these I have, because we ain't gonna talk about that. But this is the best blending brush. If you're wanting to do a one shadow look, this is good to pack it on the lid and also kind of diffuse it up. I've done several of those on my channel. It's actually, well, I actually have 2 shadows on today. I know it kind of looks like 1, but it's 2. But this is the brush that I always use to start out with my looks. So I use it for my transition shades. I use it for my smoky colors, like this color right here on the outer corner. I just packed it on just like this and then kind of blended it into the crease. And then I went in with a lighter color right here. I used the same brush. I just swirl the brush on a dry napkin just to get most of the color off. Now, I know they have color switchers that you can use when you're wanting to, you know, dip in another color instead of having to grab a different brush. But I misplaced mine, so I just been swirling it on a dry napkin or like a towel, something like that. But anyway, I went in with the lighter shade, and I'm wearing the Dior Amber Neutrals on my eyes right now. But the lighter shade is from the Patrick Ta palette. It's the lightest nude color in that palette. I don't know the name of it, but it's the lightest shade in there. And I just tapped the brush in there and I packed it right there on the inner corner, and I just kind of diffused it into that darker shade from the Dior eyeshadow palette. And that's how this look came about. But this whole look was used with this one brush. Even though it is kind of fluffy now that I've used it so much, because it does look smaller. I mean, it is smaller once you first get it, but the more you use it, the more the brushes are going to kind of spread out, which I love. I love when my brush is worn in. It just makes the shadow go on so much better. It makes it look better. But yes, this is my favorite brush, you guys. The best blending brush. I love it, love it, love it. Now, I do have another favorite brush that I also use if all of my Morphe brushes are dirty and I don't want to wash it. But this one from Fenty Beauty, this is the 210 blending brush. This is also really good for crease colors. It's good for all over lid colors. It's just as good as my Morphe M504. It's just that the Morphe is a little bit more, oh, something was flying around in here. But the Morphe is a little bit fluffier than the Fenty, but they're both great brushes. They're the ones that I use the most out of all of my other like eyeshadow brushes. Now with the shimmer shadow, I always use my finger. I feel like the finger is just easier for me. I know some people like to use a brush with that, but I prefer to use a finger and just kind of tap it on just like that. And then I'll take the Fenty, since it is smaller than the Morphe. And if the glitter or the shimmer looks too shimmery or glittery around the edges, I just take the Fenty brush and just kind of soften it up just like that, and I'm good to go. And usually the brush is clean when I do that. Either the Fenty or the Morphe, whichever one I have close to me, that's what I grab. But that's actually it. That is literally all the brushes that I use, that I'm always grabbing every time I do my makeup, every time I'm on camera doing my makeup. Literally, these are the brushes that I'm using. So I hope this helped. There are so many other brushes that I could recommend to you guys, but these are just the ones that are always sitting on my vanity, the ones that I'm always reaching for, and the ones that I'm always washing and using again, washing and using again and again and again and again and again, because I love them. And I know some of you are going to be in the comments, have you tried Sigma brushes? Yes, girl, when I say I have tried all the brushes, literally, I have tried all the brushes, a ton of brushes, and I like a ton of other brushes. It's just, like I said, these are my staples. Not even just Sigma, like a ton of different other brands, you guys. I have tried so many. I have so many, like, it's just crazy. At this point, I honestly will feel okay with getting rid of all of the brushes that I have in my beauty closet right now and just sticking with these right here that I have in front of me, because these are the ones that I'm just always reaching for. But anywho, that is all that I have for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if I use any brushes that you guys use, or if there's any brushes that you feel like I haven't tried out. If you have been watching me for a while, let me know. So let's talk about it down below in the comments. But that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, give me a huge thumbs up. Make sure you are subscribed if you're not subscribed already, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.